Well, welcome back to my channel, folks. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a project that I've been working on for about 2 years now, maybe a little bit longer. And it is my new book that is coming out called Victorian Southwest Michigan True Crime. And I just wanted to take a minute to give you a little bit of a background on how I arrived at this history book as being the first one that I release on from all of the subject matter that I have covered on this channel before. And it's a fascinating subject. The first thing that you have to take out of the title is the word Victorian. What does that mean? A lot of people don't know. And the Victorian period was a period in history during the reign of Queen Victoria in England. And she reigned from 1837 to 1901. And it was this period of time in history where not only did she and her family have a profound influence on culture and aspects of society that are still prevalent today, but it also impacted not just her own country over in England, but also all of Europe and the United States. So the Victorian era, from her reign from 1837 to her death in 1901, we see a lot of changes in society, and everything from fashion that was influenced by Queen Victoria's family, as well as cultural traditions and other things like that. Around the holidays, you see it around Christmas time with Christmas trees and sorts of things like that. But also, a lot of changes happened in society. The world economy in England, in the United States, and Europe went from predominantly agricultural communities with small isolated farming communities to larger cities and to the growth of the Industrial Revolution. And there's a lot of changes that happened, everything from transportation. The early part of her reign, people were traveling on horses and wagons to get around. The road conditions were basically unpaved dirt and gravel sometimes. Transportation also was introduced during this time, was the railroad. So we have the introduction of the railroad starting around the 1840s in Michigan. It became really defined somewhere in the 1850s. The height of the railroads in Michigan is largely referred to as 1870 era and to about 1880 as the golden age of the railroad, where there was more tracks in Michigan than any time in history. There's a lot of changes that happened also with telecommunications. They went from having no form of long distance communication between cities other than couriers to having telegraph to telephone exchanges to telephone systems as late as 1901. A lot of other things changed too, not only in transportation and telephones, but the way food was taken and cultivated and stored and food preservation. So you have all of these changes that we take for granted in society that came into being and refined in development during the Victorian era. And when I began researching history on this channel, I started finding all of these stories from that period, and I was seeing words and contexts and references, and I wanted to learn more about it. And as I began to dig, I said, wow, I'm learning a lot about this period of time, and I'm becoming more fascinated. And I also realized that a lot of historians were not going back that far in local history. A lot of them would stop right around 1900 with their stories. And I wanted to know what happened in the 1800s. I mean, there was some context of storytelling from that period locally, but not as much as I wanted. So I wanted to dig and find. And so I learned through a lot of painstaking efforts, learning from other researchers, as well as doing my own research and finding ways to find information that was lost, looking at old written accounts and biographies, old newspapers, to genealogy records, to piece together the lives of people that existed during that period and be able to start telling some of their stories. And you have seen some of these stories unfold on my YouTube channel here. So during this time period, I started noticing in stories as I was researching on people that were creating businesses and whatnot and having triumphs and failures, I started seeing occasional references to shocking crimes that happened. And they would fill the newspapers for a period of time and then they'd disappear. Somebody would go to jail or prison. And I became interested. I started clipping these. And then after a time, I started thinking, well, I need to start writing some books about stories. As I developed my podcast and continued expanding my YouTube channel here, And I started interviewing authors on my podcast, and through some advice from local authors, they told me that, local Michigan authors, they told me that, true crime was a very hot topic, because I had mentioned some of these stories I was finding. And from there on, I started researching true crime. And some of these stories I had actually covered on my YouTube channel here before. And I learned as I continued to get better as a researcher that I would revisit stories and I'd start finding more information than I previously found on earlier stories. And then I made the decision that I really needed to take a deep dive into each of the stories that I wanted to put into a collection. At some point, this evolved into me reaching out to History Press, pitching them my idea of stories and collections and a true crime book, and they loved the idea. And this book came into being. So in this book called Victorian Southwest Michigan True Crime, it is a collection of 17 stories that I have put together of true crime stories during that Victorian period. And there's a lot in Calhoun County because that was kind of my wheelhouse of research. There's roughly about 9 or 10 stories that take place in Calhoun County, but there are stories also that take place in Eaton County, Berrien County, Berry County, St. Joseph County, and Branch County, as well as Jackson. There is a huge story that takes place in Jackson that overlaps into part of Branch and Calhoun County, and then there's another story that starts in Branch and goes and it'll all the way up into Eaton County. So there's some of these crossover stories that take place in these areas of Southwest Michigan. So I hope that you will take advantage of pre-ordering the book. I will send you a signed copy. Pre-ordering helps me out a lot as an author. It allows me to order more books myself for my upcoming book tour and get you guys your books, my truest fans, their copies as soon as the book is published. I will have my supply probably a week before it's officially published out there, so hopefully I'll be able to send those out, and you might even receive them a day or two before the actual publishing date, depending on shipments and mails and all of that. But either way, I will send you a signed copy as soon as I have my supply in. And I hope that you will do this because it helps me out, of course, in the ordering, but it also shows me how many of you are actually following my channel and really enjoy the work that I'm doing. And I hope that you love true crime because I've become a fan of it just from doing the research of it. And in the context of this book, I'm trying to not just tell you the bloody story of the crime itself, but I'm also trying to convey some of the fascinating details of the Victorian period and pass along some of that interesting revolutionary things that I have discovered in my own learning about the period itself to you as the reader and help you get a little bit more immersed into the time period so you can understand the context of the day-to-day lives of these people that were living during that time and what their experiences were, and perhaps maybe have a better understanding of their troubles. And maybe, we can't fully understand why they did some of the crimes that they did, but at least we can understand the lives of the victims and why they put themselves in some of the situations they were in, and perhaps put it in context with our own lives. But either way, I think there is a morbid fascination that goes along with it, as well as a historical fascination when reading true crime. And I hope that you'll enjoy this collection and support me by picking up a copy of the book. And I'd love to hear what you guys think about it when the book comes out. And so looking forward to getting you guys reading these stories and sharing them with others. And I hope to bring some of these stories out on this YouTube channel in the coming months, to tantalize you to get the book as well. So that's what I wanted to tell you about today. I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll put the link in the description of this video where you can pre-order, but you can go on michaeldelaware.com. It's right there in the middle of the page, very easy to find, and you can pre-order today. And thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to hit the like button and share this video with others, and subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching.